It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, a busy week. Why I've deleted Facebook Messenger from my smartphone. Rob Reid will join us along with Patrick Beja to talk about that. Is Apple abandoning Intel? And the little hotel has a big fine. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 470, recorded August 10th, 2014. Tainted Love on a Floppy. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Jira, an Atlassian product. Jira is the project management solution for teams planning, building, and launching great products. To learn more about Jira and try it free for 30 days, visit Atlassian.com/twit. And by Shutterstock. With over 40 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 20% off any image file on your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use the offer code TWIT814. And by Carbonite. Whether you have one computer at home or several at your small business, Carbonite backs up your files to the cloud automatically and continually. Plus, access your files anytime, anywhere with a free app. Start your free trial at Carbonite.com. No credit card required. Use the offer code TWIT and you'll get 2 bonus months with purchase. And by Citrix GoToMeeting, the powerfully simple way to meet with coworkers and clients from the convenience of your computer, smartphone, or tablet. Share the same screen and see each other face-to-face with HD video conferencing. Start your 30-day free trial of Citrix GoToMeeting today. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click the Try It Free button, and use the promo code TWIT. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news and always have a lot of fun doing it. Hey, great to have Rob Reid back here.
Wonderful to be here.
Rob is an entrepreneur, founded Rhapsody many moons ago.
Many moons ago.
You might have seen his incredible TED Talk on copyright math.
Copyright math.
And his most recent book is called Year Zero.
It is.
The year in which the aliens
discover the Welcome Back Kotter theme and realize that humanity makes the finest music in the entire universe since the dawn of time. Yeah.
However, they owe a little bit of money for pirating it.
Yes, they inadvertently, because they are so passionate about our music, they inadvertently commit the biggest copyright infringement since the Big Bang, thereby bankrupting the entire universe. Quite possibly based on a true story.
It's great to have you back, Rob.
It's great to be here.
Also from Paris, France, or its environs nearby, Patrick Beja, not Patrick. Patrick, during the day, works for Blizzard France, but at night, he has been known to make a podcast or two at patrickbeja.com.
I have. Just let me say right now, I do not represent Blizzard France at all. So, just to make this clear, very mandatory disclaimer.
We might as well just say it. None of us do.
No, I don't either.
Not a one here will represent Blizzard France during this conversation.
So I'm just a podcaster.
Was anybody at all tempted to go to Black Hat or DEF CON this week? This is the week of the hackers convening in Las Vegas.
I was personally offline, or largely offline, for 6 weeks working on my second novel. So I was
how exciting!
In an undisclosed location in the Great Lakes Riviera. And so I didn't go to anything.
Were you in Michigan?
I was in Michigan.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
It is beautiful up there, yeah.
And interesting. So you felt that in order to write this novel, you would have to sign off social media, sign off the internet?
It was an experiment, and I think it worked well enough. I got enough done that I'm going to probably do it multiple times over the coming year.
Right.
I got probably 15,000 words written, which
That's
is
good.
a big chunk for me.
How many, 6 weeks?
Probably about 6 weeks. I also wrote the outline of the book, so there was more than just that going on. And I'm going to probably try to do that every couple of months.
What a good idea.
Take an email vacation.
So now you're a novelist.
Now I'm a novelist, yeah.
This is the new thing.
This is the new thing.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was thinking, do I want to start another company or write another book? Because that was easy. Starting a company hurts.
I got to tell you, having written a few books, writing a book is the worst thing I've ever done. So it must be terrible starting a company.
Well, you've done it.
Oh, yeah, wait a minute.
Running this thing here, this magnificent entity.
I personally prefer to start companies to writing books. Yeah. That's how bad writing is for me.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, it's
to each his own.
To each his or her own.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's the new book about?
It is going to be about an imaginary startup. And it is actually, there's thin connective tissue with Year Zero, the book about the aliens. In that book, there was this imaginary social network called Flutter, P-H-L-U-T-T-R. And I do have the URL, so don't try to grab that. And it was just like embodied everything that's bad about social media. And everybody just thought it was the most wonderful thing. It was like infest your phone and figure out everything about you and blather it to the world. And it was kind of like a playful little plot device. Well, I started thinking it'd be really fun to write a book about a startup, an imaginary startup, in a similar playful science fiction-y voice to the last one. It's like, well, what startup? I was like, Flutter. So it is going to be the story of Flutter. I was thinking of calling it Flutter, the story of Flutter. But nobody knows how to spell
How about
Flutter.
Son of Flutter?
Son of Flutter could be that, or Year 02. That was another idea.
The Flutter years.
But it won't be a sequel to Year Zero. It'll be just sort of written in the same very general universe. But it won't be about music-addled aliens. Yeah.
That'll be fun.
It will be fun.
We loved Year Zero. Everybody who read it just loved it. It's hysterical.
And speaking of which, I told the folks at Random House that I was going to be on this show, and I asked them, could you do a price reduction of the Kindle version of Year Zero for this very week? Because here we are. And they have reduced the price to $2.99.
On
this
Amazon?
week only, on Amazon for the Kindle. And I believe on all electronic platforms. I believe on the Nook, on the iBook store and so forth.
As if there are any other platforms.
As if.
All right, fair enough.
We love them all.
Actually, we're going to, one of the reasons we have you on, we want to talk about the 900 author revolt.
There it is, $2.99.
That's
and
really
it
good.
Went live like a day or two ago. So
if you haven't read it, Kindle it.
Kindle it, yeah.
Not Year Zero, A History of 1945.
No, there are a lot of books called Year Zero, not the Nine Inch Nails album.
But
yeah,
in
a lot
fact,
of confusion about
Year
that
Zero,
too.
a novel by Rob Reid. You'll know you have the right one when you see the alien listening to music on the cover. Actually, I'm going to change tack. I was going to start with the hacker revelations at DEF CON and Black Hat. But, now that you mentioned social media, I think this has been the summer of negative news about social media in many respects. This week we learned that Secret, Whisper, and other secret social media networks have hired a company in the Philippines to screen all of the messages to make sure there's no bullying or harassment going on. Facebook decided to split Facebook and Messenger, and a lot of hue and cry over the privacy issues with Messenger. Foursquare and Swarm also split. This has been an interesting summer for social media. I actually deleted Facebook and Facebook Messenger from my phone this week. Facebook, I don't know if it's happened to everybody, but it happened to me. Starting Wednesday, if you were using the Facebook app on your smartphone, it said, sorry, you can't use Messenger anymore. You have to get a separate app, download Messenger. So I did. And then I found I couldn't turn off notifications for more than a few hours. And little chat heads kept popping up. And,
Oh, gosh.
So I just deleted them.
Can't you go offline, though, on Messenger?
Well,
Just
I
not be
actually
available?
got some help. And this is we're going to make this a little tip from the radio show. You can't, in the Messenger app, you go to turn off notifications. I'm actually going to show it to you because it's so annoying. You go to turn off notifications. Where's the Messenger app? I reinstalled it just so I could demonstrate this. If you go into notifications and you say, I want to turn them off, you go off, it says, okay, we'll mute notifications. Would you like it to be for 1 hour or until 8 a.m.?
Whoa.
That's your choice. Now, every other app I've ever used would say, you could say, I don't.
The general everything, right? To mute everything. Can't you just mute each of them individually completely by unchecking them?
No. Here's the checkboxes. You can turn off notification previews, vibrate, light, sound. You could choose a ringtone, and you could have a free call vibrate on ring, but you can't disable granularly any of these. And if you do the off, it says, oh, yeah, great, no problem. We'll turn it off for an hour or until tomorrow morning. Which would you prefer? Now, that was enough for me to uninstall it because I don't want chat heads pop. By the way, I started having chat heads pop up on other apps.
Oh, my God.
It had turned my Android phone into that horrific Facebook home phone. that they sold.
That is incredible. I mean, like, there's so many things that are wrong about that, but I think what offends me the most is to keep it shut off. You would have to get up at 8 in the morning every single day. It's not a morning person.
That alone.
It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right.
Somebody very kindly showed me that, at least on this phone, and I think this is true on Android in general, in the settings, you can, if you go into the app settings on an Android phone, you can say, I want all notifications turned off for that app. So I'm hoping that in fact does prohibit this. I guess you can globally prohibit it, but that's not was not Facebook's intent.
Level that
you have to do it at the system
level.
There's
a system level thing that allows you to block everything all the notifications that come of this app.
And it's my fear it will also break.
that's-
It will probably break it. This is the OnePlus phone, and it has CyanogenMod, which has this great thing called Privacy Guard. When Privacy Guard is enabled, the app will not be able to access personal data like contacts, messages, or call logs. By turning that on, I'm probably breaking Messenger. But I did turn that on, and I disabled notifications.
The trouble with that is you have to turn that on at 6 in the morning every day. It's a terrible feature. I think that's a reasonable time in wherever Samsung is, but yeah.
And people are pointing out, well, there's no point in having Facebook Messenger if you don't have notifications. But the way I like to use Facebook is not have it push stuff at me.
Right.
But when I open it up, I can see what messages people have sent me. And now I have to do that on the desktop. Not a big deal, but I feel like Facebook is, as usual, pushing it as far as it can until people go, hey, wait a minute. There are other issues with the new Facebook Messenger. Facebook says it's not our fault, it's Android's fault. For instance, among the permissions you give it when you install it are the right to make phone calls without your permission.
Oh, God.
They say, well, we don't want to, but the Android makes us ask for that right. It says...
I'm not sure what they're trying to do with that permission, but I think what they said was that they can't change the text for that permission, which makes sense. But they're not actually going to be making phone calls without their permission. But yeah, as you were saying, there's no option for them to clarify this.
We've seen that with text messages.
They actually want to do.
We've seen that with text messages where if, for instance, WhatsApp, the way WhatsApp validates your WhatsApp account is it sends a text message to your phone number, which it then can read. So it has to both send the message and read it. And so you have to give it permission to send and receive and read your text messages.
Right.
But it's just for that constrained purpose. I don't know what the phone call permission could possibly be.
Make phone calls without your permission. That is so weird.
And then there's the issue of it, and I think other programs do this. It tracks you all the time so it can put your location in.
Yep.
Presumably sending that information back to Facebook. I don't know if I care about that, but that's another. I mean, the phone's tracking you all the time. He's also, and apparently, when there's something called passive listening, Messenger may listen to the first 15 seconds of the audio that's going on while you're writing a status update, so that it can say what you're listening to in your status update.
So do like a SoundHound thing and like say, oh, Rob's listening to NSYNC.
Someone on Twitter, Guillaume, is telling me that the permission for the phone call thing is so that you are able to click on call when you're speaking to someone, when you're talking to someone, to call them.
So that's the free calling feature. So you press call. It's really Skype, I think. Yeah. You press call and it makes that call. So it has to be, the app has to have that permission. That makes sense. It also, the app has the permission to take pictures and videos with the camera at any time without your confirmation. I understand people being scared by this stuff.
Yeah.
But Facebook says, no, but we have to say it that way because that's how the text reads in the permission. They say the pictures and videos is so that you can take pictures and videos within the Messenger app. So the app has to be able to do that. Recording audio so that you can send voice messages, make free voice calls, and send videos directly. So there's reasons for all of this. I don't blame Facebook on that. Actually, really was the notification thing that drove me up the wall. So
yeah, I guess even for that though, if they knew, they're testing their application, it seems like, ooh, my video quality is really bad.
Yeah,
hopefully
we're losing a little.
It isn't. Sorry. But they know their product. Hopefully, they knew how it was going to work in that respect as well. And they should have. I don't know. It's really hard, but shouldn't they have anticipated that issue and said, "We're, to some people at least, to the journalists, we know we have these weird permissions that we need to ask for, but this is why we have to ask for them." And at least give weapons to the journalists that would see that thing coming to answer the concerns of the public. It seems at least they should have done that.
The other way to do this is the way iPhone does it, which is on installation. It doesn't ask you anything, but when the issue comes up,
in context,
it says in context.
Yeah.
And I think that might be a better way to do it than how Android does it.
For sure.
They spoke about it on TNT, and Mike Elgin, our news director, posted the very long list of permissions that Facebook Messenger requires: access to identity, contacts, calendar, location, SMS, phone, photos, media files, the camera, the microphone, Wi-Fi connection information, device ID, and call information. That's pretty much everything.
Yeah, does that leave anything out?
So no wonder there's a market for this. This is the black phone, which is now on sale. From Silent Circle. This is it's from Switzerland, so it's got to be good.
It's got to be good. Yeah.
Swiss no privacy.
Swiss phone. Yeah. As accurate as a Swiss phone.
It's as good. It's the Swiss watch of phones.
Yes.
Secure by design. First of all, yes, it's Android, but it's a special version of Android called Private OS. It does not allow you, I would guess, it certainly does not give you access to any of the Google services, including the Play Store. I presume it does not allow you to download any application, otherwise it wouldn't be a very secure phone.
Right.
It does come with privacy-enabled applications. Smart disabling.
Which is cool, but you're saying, Leo, no wonder there's a market for that phone. Is there really? I mean, there's going to be people who are going to want to buy it, but can we really say there's a market for a phone like this? Because people are going to be interested in the concept of, okay, I'm going to have a phone that's actually secure and private. Cool. Now, where's my Facebook? Right? Most people, maybe not us.
It doesn't do any of the
How do I
things you
get
want
to the
do.
supermarket? Right. Where's the nearest gas station?
So, it's cool that phone exists, and I think it should, but I don't know if it's going to be very successful.
Well, and this is one of the things, one of the kind of the motifs, the leitmotifs of this summer and social media. Started with the right to be forgotten in Europe, and the European court requiring Google to delete search results for people who requested it because they didn't want the world to remember that they went bankrupt or they had molested children or whatever it is they didn't want people to know about. It strikes me that the internet and smartphones especially are not private, and that if you try to make them private, you break them. Mm-hmm. Is that the case?
Well, it's an it's kind of a duel between privacy, anonymity, and the services that people want to access. And there's an interesting debate going on about secret and so forth, about whether anonymous speech is something that's almost, they don't quite put it this way, but it's almost a question that some people are posing of whether anonymous speech is something that's worth protecting. And I think that debate has, for all intents and purposes, bubbled up in Pando Daily and some other places as people have been debating that kind of, those kinds of services. And yeah, if you try, the black phone is a great case in point. It'll be very interesting to see if it does succeed because, getting that great degree of privacy will inevitably result in a far less functional phone. And it'll be interesting to see how these things play out in the marketplace.
Somebody in the chat room pointed out, and I'm sure this is the case, that the Facebook Messenger requires no more permissions than Google's own Hangouts app, than WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I mean, any messaging program is going to require those. It's the nature of messaging.
Yeah. And I sometimes think that, we in the tech press community get more agitated about these issues than the general public does. I remember there was an interesting story when one of the sort of privacy things kicked up about Facebook. They were asking, somebody did a survey and basically asked X hundred or X thousand people, what would you be willing to sell more or less unbounded access to, your personal information for? And most people are like, $3 or $4.
Right.
Like, most people don't
that
think
much.
care that much.
You know what people want? They want control.
Yes.
What they don't, it's not necessarily that they wouldn't give it to you, but they want to control it.
Yeah.
And for instance, Google Now is a great value to me. And in order for that to work, Google has to know more than more than a little about my whereabouts and what I'm doing, but I find it very useful.
It's fascinating.
So that's
when
a
it
fair
comes-
trade.
It's fascinating when it comes up with an amazing message like your flight's late.
Right.
Or there's a traffic jam between here and the airport.
Right.
Leave
Or
now,
I
but-
see you're at the airport. Here's your check-in
Exactly.
QR
All
code.
that stuff. It's amazing.
Very useful.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the very important piece of information that's lost in a lot of those debates about privacy. As you were saying, Rob, it's both of you actually. It's completely part of that package, right? If you want to protect your privacy, you are going to lose all of these functionalities. But the problem is in the tech community, we often focus on the privacy aspect and say it's important to protect all of this, but we don't explain to the people that we are yelling these problems to that if they want to go the privacy route, they're going to lose all of these functionalities, and that's definitely a problem. And I think the key piece of information to take away from this is what you were mentioning, Leo, control. And that's where the real issue is. A lot of these companies are not willing to give us control of the how we provide the information. And so I fear that by asking for, basically, to summarize my thought here, we're sort of fighting the wrong battle when we're trying to say we absolutely need privacy. What we absolutely need is control, not privacy itself. And I think that's an important distinction.
And I think the control to turn off notifications even.
And then also, I think a vital piece of it is something that you glancingly touched on, but as we're having this conversation, I think it's very important, which is contextual notifications. I mean, so what happens is typically you'll sign a EULA and it gives somebody blanket permission to do absolutely everything, and it comes at you 90 pages in 3-point font. And
nobody reads that.
Yeah. Is that notification? Yes. Is it transparency? Absolutely not.
Right.
And presenting you the useful information in context, I think that's transparency. I don't think like this massive disclosure. It's kind of like when you walk into any garage in California now, somewhere on the wall, like a huge public parking lot, somewhere on the wall on the 3rd floor is this massive notice that says this facility contains elements that could be carcinogenic. And it's probably some good-natured law that said we need to
Prop
alert
65
people.
warning.
Yeah, and it's everywhere.
It's in California. It's everywhere. And by doing it, they've completely dulled
totally
the impact of these warnings.
The warning has no impact whatsoever.
Everything causes cancer, so that sign is everywhere.
Its ubiquity and its sweepingness makes it useless.
I first learned this lesson when I was in 5th grade. We went to a power plant. I remember this very well. And even this is in 5th grade. This is in the 60s. Everywhere in the power plant had signs that said, conserve, conserve, conserve. You know, be green, even in those days.
Wow.
And my teacher said, well, they do that for a reason, because the more you see it, the less you think about it.
It's funny.
It's just like the Prop 65.
Very
warnings.
good insight.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Talking about tech, even we have these horrendous cookies disclaimers on all of our websites in Europe now. They all warn you. You have a little bar at the top of the website every so often. Hey, by the way, this site uses cookies to improve your experience, and you can click, got it or more information, and they all have it. And they don't track all of your IPs all the time, so you get them multiple times on every site, and it completely loses any effectiveness.
Well, you ignore it.
And this is cultural though, because in Europe they're worried about cookies, but you could walk into a vat of benzene and there'd be no warning at all. There'd be a little tin cup say, if you want a drink, please have one on us, because they don't, the safety, health and safety, a lot of times Americans go to Europe, they are stunned by the health and safety regulations. Am I wrong? I'm sure in Switzerland, they're very careful.
Well, I don't know. I think I've spent a little bit of time in Japan, and Japan has a lot of that effect on me that you're talking about. Americans
like very
coming to Europe.
nervous, very worried about everything.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Well, no, the opposite. I was sleeping in wooden houses in Kyoto when I was living there, and you would have fuel like gas-based heaters, and anyway. So yeah, that was not good at all. It was very, very frightening. But
by the way, I should warn you that benzene has been known by the state of California to cause cancer.
I think it's important to make that point.
Just want to make sure we follow the Prop 65. Yep. Where can
I click got it on your forehead?
We've actually been thinking, should we have the cookies warning on our Twitch site? Because, of course, every site has cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, warning, this site uses cookies. Should be, but do we need to have it?
So long as you can dismiss the warning until 8 the following morning.
By the way, do you know how the site knows that you've dismissed the warning? They said a cookie.
With a cookie.
So what is the reaction?
And the worst thing is no one understands it. No one understands it. Right?
That's why
they just got it. And
that's Jeff Jarvis on Twig calls it techno panic. You can't, and it's the same thing with these Facebook Messenger warnings. The techno panic is, oh my God, all the stuff they could do, but what they are going to do is not really so horrible. What is the reaction in France to this right to be forgotten? Is it generally understood that this is not possible?
So initially, not possible. I don't know. I mean, Google is doing it. And initially,
but don't you just go to Google.com if you want to find something? Because it's only Google.fr. Right?
Yeah, but of course. But I don't know how many people will actually do that. They'll just Google something and not find the result that would have been incriminating or that others wanted to have hidden. And of course, journalists might still look into that. But generally, the reaction has been widespread ignorance of any of that issue, except Google has been acting on it so diligently and so quickly that they actually provoked a very high visibility reactions. The Guardian and other very big outlets have mentioned it and talked about it and complained about it. So there's
I'm sure that was Google's intent, by the way, right?
Well, exactly. That's a lot of people are saying actually Google legally they were not bound by the decision at that point. So a lot of people are saying they went really far, really fast in order to shine a light on the issues that this would cause. And now that they have, actually, I think they're not necessarily going to revise the issue right now, but there are votes coming up in the next few weeks or months. And I don't think people are ignoring the issue in the same way anymore. At least people understand the consequences of that specific decision and that specific route that they would have maybe gone if Google hadn't gone so far in this instance. So it's probably a good thing.
Wikipedia very upset by it. In fact, they've started to replace pages that are blanked by the right to be forgotten on Wikipedia because there's quite a few. With notices, this page has been deleted or blocked due to the right to be forgotten. They want to call attention to it because,
of course,
as Jimmy Wales has said, he had a great quote. I can't find it here, but he has stuff he'd like to have forgotten, but
of course. And the big, you've discussed this already, but the big issue is that they're not actually, if they legally had a right to go and remove that content, then of course go do that. But the indexation of that content, removing that is very questionable. And actually the EU, you were talking about the notice that Wikipedia is putting up for those pages. The EU actually gave a call to Google and Bing because when they were accepting removal of content to a specific site, they would send an email to the webmaster of that site informing them of the removal, which is possibly why The Guardian and others have actually found out or realized the extent to which. And the EU was calling Google apparently saying, you can't do that. or, we need to talk about this because this defeats the purpose. So I was saying they realize the issue now, but maybe they actually don't quite get it yet.
I think Google's very cagey. I mean, they deleted 91,000 search results, 91,000 pages. I think very cagey, doing it aggressively and early to raise the issue. Wikimedia had its conference, the annual Wikimania conference in London this week, and here's the quote from Jimmy Wales. He called the EU's right to be forgotten as deeply immoral. He warned the ruling will result in an internet riddled with memory holes. But this was my favorite quote. He says, I've been in the public eye for quite some time. Some people say good things. Some people say bad things. That's history. And I would never use any kind of legal process like this to try to suppress the truth. History is a human right. And one of the worst things a person can do is to attempt to use force to silence another. And I think that's pretty right on.
Well, another interesting aspect of this is the blowback that some people have unintentionally triggered on themselves. Did you hear the story about the guy who wanted to have it forgotten that he went to a tantric sex workshop?
Yes.
So there was somebody who did a takedown notice of an article from the 90s that mentioned in passing that he attended this tantric sex workshop. So, of course, the Wall Street Journal immediately writes an article about this fact and calls the guy up and interviews him. So I think it probably brought a little more attention.
It's the Streisand effect.
Yeah,
it's very
it's the
well
Streisand
known.
effect.
Yeah.
It's reached by phone, Mr. Linde confirmed that he had asked for the story to be removed from searches for his name because he didn't want to be shouted online by an article. He feels blah, blah, blah. This could and is, in fact, having a material effect on my career, Mr. Linde said of the story. Anyway.
Although I have to point out that Jimmy Wales is quite famous for having apparently trying to disappear one of his co-founders. Not actually disappear him, but the story that he
had a co-founder.
Co-founder. So I don't know. Maybe.
But okay, is there another side to the story though? If we try to take, I'm going to try and be the devil's advocate for just a second. That poor guy who defaulted on his payment in Spain in like 15 or 20 years ago.
This is the original
at the
court
source.
case. The original case.
The original one where the Spanish court called on the EU to get their a decision on a specific aspect of that case. Should you, because it's not even something bad that you've done. It's just something that happened to you, or you were in an unfortunate situation. Google is if that's the only thing that you've ever done or that has your name on the internet, that's always going to come back. Always, whenever, no matter what you do. And there might be some public records there that you can't really go to and ask them to remove because it's public record and it's important to have the public records as well. But the effect that Google has is that it makes this one thing that is on the internet the sum of your life, right? So isn't there an argument to maybe not the right to be forgotten to be enforced in that specific way, but isn't there an argument to be made that maybe that is also not a good thing and we should try to address it somehow?
But is it Google's job or is it your job to create more stuff so that it's not the only thing that appears on the internet?
Release a pop song immediately.
Do more stuff. Yeah. I agree. It's not fair and it's not right. And of course, to further your point, Patrick, Google does exercise, maybe it's algorithmically, but editorial judgment about what your life is. It decides what search results are important about you and what aren't. It says, well, it's done by an algorithm that is, completely unbiased and so forth. But I think any algorithm has bias built into it.
Yeah, and it's also an algorithm that is constantly tweaked,
right,
and always very controversial. when it happens.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
They are constantly modifying the algorithm.
Well, they just modified it to bump up the sites that were using HTTPS.
Yeah,
right?
encryption.
There you go. That's now. While we all think that's a good thing, that's an example of editorial control. And as soon as Google does that once, then it is now exerting some editorial control over your search results.
And they are so all-powerful in terms of driving traffic to sites that their editorial judgment about whether encryption or sort of policy judgment almost has the effect of enforceable government policy. It becomes so powerful because they are so significant. And in this particular case, I think, more encryption is great, but it gives you they're almost in a position, or they are in a position to de facto regulate the internet. It's just fascinating.
So just so
that's-
you know,
that's
on
not
this
even editorial, right?
on this story, just so you know, Google has decided that among all the signals it accepts to rank pages, it's going to add another signal whether the page is using strong encryption, HTTPS, by default, which most pages, ours does not, most pages don't.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason for me to encrypt the data that I'm sending to you.
Until now.
But now there is.
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, we on Security Now, we've talked about this idea of HTTPS everywhere. It wasn't done originally because of the overhead, the calculation overhead, and now computers and
Processors
servers
are fast enough.
more than fast enough. There really isn't a penalty or much of a penalty for securing the traffic. But there is an expense. You have to get a secure certificate. That's not free.
Right.
It's hundreds and hundreds of dollars, in some cases thousands of dollars. There's no reason for me to encrypt the traffic that's coming to you from Twit or any of my pages,
Right.
Or encrypt your traffic to me. So that's an interesting thing that Google's imposing on us.
It's actually enacting, shaping. I think, you were talking about editorial control that Google has. This is, it poses an even bigger question. They're actually influencing the architecture on the internet. In this case, we're super happy that they're doing it for the right reasons and in the right way. What about, they decide that they are going to bump up the sites that use VP9? Or how's it called? Their codecs for
their video codec.
Yeah.
Their so-called
video or audio
unencumbered
codecs.
video
Yeah.
encodec.
Or use Google
So, I mean, to an extent,
We've
you have
always
to trust
thought that.
them,
We've always
but,
thought, hey, Google may promote YouTube over, say, Dailymotion, which is a French video site. They may promote Google Plus over Facebook.
Yeah.
And Google, I think, tries very hard not to do that. That's always the risk as Google gets into businesses besides search, that some of their businesses will compete with other people on the internet.
I guess it's that there's always been the fear, and I trust Google. I use Google for everything, but and I actually think that they're out there to, in some ways, while making a lot of money, they do have initiatives that seem to be furthering the common good. But that being said, I'm just saying that here they're stepping into actually shaping the internet's technical infrastructure and through their algorithm.
I think they've done that before.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Okay, but
de facto it gives them regulatory power, de facto.
By the way, they say currently it's a very lightweight signal affecting fewer than 1% of global queries and carrying less weight than other signals such as high-quality content, while we give webmasters time to switch to HTTPS. But over time, this is Google writing, we may decide to strengthen it because we'd like to encourage all website owners to switch to HTTPS to keep everyone safe on the web. That's pretty heavy-handed.
So, do any of us would want them not to do it? I'm happy they're doing it, but
I think there are a lot of sites, in fact, probably the vast majority of sites that gain nothing by encryption.
I mean, I'd certainly want my Gmail encrypted, and it is.
Facebook should be encrypted.
Facebook should be encrypted. Anything that contains credit cards
is.
should be and is. Any financial site should be and is. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. It seems like they're doing it for the right motivations, but my guess is that most of the traffic that we would want encrypted is already anyway.
It's very odd.
It is kind of.
And but this points out the complexity of all of this, of the right to be forgotten, of Google's role in this. There is an editorial role. I feel bad for people who, the sole search result is something negative. They may be Mahatma Gandhi in their real. I mean, Gandhi may not have published a lot of websites in his time, and maybe the one thing you'd find is some nasty page that was written about him. That's terrible, and I don't know how you solve that.
Yeah, he was late on a credit card payment. I saw that.
He was late, and it was in the news, and
First thing that comes up, it's.
I doubt Gandhi had a web page, but I may be wrong. Let's take a break. We're going to come back with more. Rob Reid is here, founder of Rhapsody and a novelist. Now he's taken the novelist turn. Reid, Rob Reid, REID.com if you want to know more about his books, including Year Zero, his most recent, and soon a new one.
Soon a new one.
Untitled. Rob Reid's next project. And also Patrick Beja from notpatrick.com. Is it not Patrick? No, it's patrickbeja.com.
Oh, it's patrickbeja.com.
At not Patrick on the Twitter.
That
In his new apartment, which is beautiful.
isn't it wonderful?
Lovely.
I have a Japanese copper carving in the back.
Very aesthetic.
I like it very much.
Very Parisian. It's all white. You obviously have
Yeah, that's the.
You have neither children
the
nor small
Finnish
dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Finnish wife influence.
Yeah. It's very
all white and wood.
Scandinavian. Yes. Our show today brought to you by a great company called Atlassian and their project management solution, Jira. Jira. It's for teams planning, building, and launching great products. You've probably heard about it. It's one of the world's most powerful and customizable issue and project management systems. So if you're building a great big app or just a little iOS app, it'll easily capture, organize your workflow, keep your team on the same page so you can prioritize, take action on what's important, keep up to date with what's going on with you. Many companies, in fact, 25,000 companies use Jira, including 70% of the Fortune 500. NASA uses Jira. Jira integrates beautifully with Git, so you can follow your code from development to delivery on the same system. They have hundreds, thousands of Jira plugins, all sorts of stuff to add to Jira. And, of course, because they have a great REST API, you can add plugins of your own. Flexible and simple enough for a 5-person startup, powerful and reliable enough for a 100,000-person enterprise. Jira. Now, you've heard about it. You've probably wondered, why aren't we using Jira? Well, now you can, free for 30 days. Very affordable. Monthly plans start at $10 a month for up to 10 users. Track it all with Jira via email, chat, app mentions, RSS. It's fantastic. Jira is from Atlassian. Go to Atlassian.com/twit to learn more and try it free. Atlassian, Atlassian, Atlassian.com/twit. Great company, great product, very, very well known in many circles. We were talking earlier about Mojang using it for their bug track for Minecraft.
I actually had to use it just the other day.
You're going, I'm using Jira.
I did. I had to check on a bug with Obsidian, and sure enough, I found myself checking it in their bug tracker, which is run by Jira.
We tried to get Steve Gibson on this episode, but he'll be talking on Tuesday about bad USB. We'd been hearing about this before, but the Black Hat conference finally revealed the details of the bad USB hack. And Father Robert Ballecer, who was there, and he'll be talking about it on Twiat, said it was the talk of the conference. Very active, very interesting Q&A afterwards. It's kind of stunning, kind of hard to believe. The researchers who discovered bad USB found that almost all USB devices, including most USB keys, most USB drives, have reprogrammable firmware. With the right hardware, which is widely available, easy to get, you can modify the firmware to carry a malware payload in such a way that it's indetectable, can't be removed, and could bite you bad.
Sounds very Stuxnet-y.
Well, it's interesting because Stuxnet, which was the virus that infected the Iranian centrifuges where they were enriching uranium for building, people thought perhaps nuclear bombs. Those centrifuges, I think they were made by Siemens, right?
Yep.
They use the SCADA system.
Yep.
And they were air-gapped. That's a good protection, right? You don't connect these things to the internet because that's how malware gets in. But unfortunately for them, not for us, I guess, I think it was probably some governmental agency managed to subvert somebody who worked there, give him a USB key, it
was thumb drives,
plugged into the SCADA, modified it, and I think it caused the USB. It either caused the centrifuges to spin up to such a high rate that they broke, or play AC/DC music. I'm not sure. It was one of those. But in either event, it slowed down the enrichment process considerably. So the difference there is that was an auto run. We believe. We don't know.
Yep.
I talked about this with Steve last week. It's thought, but not known, that that might have been an auto run on those USB keys. And, of course, we've known about that for a long time. But this is worse because it's in the firmware.
Yeah.
And the real revelation, I think, had we known this, I don't think it would have been so hard to figure this out. The real revelation is that so many thumb drives have reprogrammable firmware.
I had no idea.
capability. They have EEPROMs on them.
Yeah.
Why? Who would have thought that? This is the research comes from SR Labs. The details are on their website. They say the versatility of USB is also its Achilles heel, since different device classes can plug into the same connectors. One type of device can turn into a more capable or malicious type without the user noticing. So that's part of the issue. Is it could be a phone that you're plugging in, but it could be seen as a mass storage device and copy data over and so forth.
Yeah, and we're back to the balance between security and convenience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The convenience of the USB, which is what makes it so widely used and convenient, is what makes this hack possible. And it's the most frightening thing about all of this is that there's no real solution. There's no fix there, or at least no easy fix.
We're going to talk a lot about it, I'm sure, on Tuesday on Security Now, and that's why I wanted to get Steve on, but he's out of pocket, as he usually is on Sundays. I've seen articles from a lot of people saying, oh, it's no big deal, don't worry.
Yeah.
I've seen others say this is the worst thing that's ever happened. The real question is it in the wild, because malware the malware in the firmware cannot be detected by normal antivirus programs. We don't know. Although I think, is it either Norton or McAfee has reported that there have been some bad USB in the wild detected. So maybe they've come up with some sort of scanner.
There's been.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely frightening. And on what you were saying, this is kind of not a big deal. And Hack5 has built this rubber ducky, right? That basically functions in the same way. It's a rubber USB key, a rubber duck USB key that pretends to be something else, something other than it is, and that allows you to do a bunch of hacky stuff. But it's very difficult to figure out who to trust. Is it really the end of the world, or is it, absolutely not a big deal? It's probably somewhere in the middle, but it's definitely not. It doesn't seem benign at all. It seems like something serious that could very possibly lead to serious issues and hacks and attacks. That being said, it's also very new. So even though you can't really identify it when you plug in your USB key, because the virus scanners don't have access to that EEPROM, and so they can read the contents of that ROM to figure out this is something that shouldn't be on there, and remedy it. They could probably figure out that something weird is happening on your computer, and something, you're going to have different types of viruses using that vulnerability.
Yeah, that's part of the question, is how hard it is to do this. You obviously have to have physical access to the USB key. Do you need EEPROM burning software? I mean, maybe they did it at the presentation. We haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
We'll find out more about that. The other point to be made is that if any company wanted to be malicious, of course, there's firmware in everything, and it'd be easy enough to bury malware into firmware. We're trusting the people we buy our hardware from.
100%.
And there have been plenty of examples of that being misguided trust, malware being delivered on a new computer, that kind of thing. I should also point out that one of the NSA exploits revealed by Edward Snowden, Cottonmouth 3, is a USB hardware implant which will provide a wireless bridge into a target network, as well as the ability to load exploit software onto target PCs. The NSA had this years ago. In fact, it may even be the same vulnerability.
Yeah.
One thing we know, the NSA, because we had an analyst. We didn't unwittingly. I put an NSA analyst on the show last week, Alan Malventano. One thing we know for sure: the NSA has very smart people working for it. His job was to reverse engineer malware, presumably so that somebody in another division at the NSA could then use it. They have smart people, and if this exploit exists, they knew about it at least 5 years ago. in May 2009, according to the slide presentation.
If they didn't create it themselves.
But if you think about it, if you knew, all you need is the information that there's programmable firmware in these things, and you'd go, oh, well, that's a problem.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that's not something that anyone created. That's a fundamental
how they build them.
vulnerability of the USB product. Yeah, exactly.
It turns out that this is a convenience for manufacturers. Manufacturers said, well, it's frequently, we're halfway through the production and, we got a bug in the firmware. We want to be able to not have to throw out all those USBs. Right. They could, and I imagine some will, use unburnable ROMs. But that's been a feature. In fact, it's a feature of IronKey, which is one of the most secure USB keys, is that you can reprogram the firmware. The firmware is updatable. Nice. I think IronKey has addressed this issue with signing and other techniques. But I imagine that there's no reason why, especially now, you couldn't make a USB key with a ROM that's unmodifiable. And I think they should put that on the... Can't burn the firmware on the front of the package. But you're still trusting that the person who made the ROM didn't put something in there and manufacture. It's the internet.
That you can trust because, you have to trust them because if it happened, the incentive would be bad press.
Right.
If it ever happened, they would have a horrible time recovering from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Public opinion, once again, is our only defense.
Hey, Leo, I actually happen to have some audio recording of the Stuxnet centrifuges.
Let's hear it.
Turns out that what they were actually playing was a Tainted Love.
Tainted Love.
Yeah.
So they got him to spin. No, this is a joke. It got them to spin in such a way they became unstable at the moment.
Yeah. Anyway.
And it just sounded like Tainted Love. It
just happened to.
Soft cell entitled to public performance on every spin of the centrifuge?
What are these?
7,800 RPM. That would be a lot of plays.
It's actually these are floppy disks.
Oh my God! Somebody took the trouble.
Oh, there was a lot of this last year. Everyone was doing their own version of printers and
matrix printers and
PC parts, and that would sing.
But only a floppy disk can really get that beautiful pure bass tone.
Yeah. It's really hard to get a G sharp out of a printer. It really is.
I think there's a novel in there somewhere.
Whoa! Can we get taken down on YouTube
I
for
have
playing
no idea.
a floppy disk version of Tainted Love?
Let's see if I mean they don't have it claimed. Normally there's a little thing that's right here that says this is a Tainted Love.
By now, Tainted Love should be one of the songs. There are a few that just really nobody should assert ownership of.
Like Happy Birthday.
Happy Birthday.
Yeah. Happy Birthday, Tainted Love.
Never Gonna Give You Up.
Shook Me All Night Long.
Shook Me All. There are a few.
There's a few. Yeah.
If you really just nobody should claim
cultural
ownership.
Property at this point. Yeah.
Our show today brought to you by. Are you ever going to do another TED Talk? Because that copyright math was awesome.
I'd like to.
You should go back and do a follow-up.
One of these days, I think I will.
Do you have to talk to Chris Anderson and beg him, or how does that work?
He actually invited me to do the talk, which was great.
Yeah.
I have a good rapport with Chris. I've known him for many long years, and I think, I think it'd be really fun, sort of lifelong goal to do a full, proper 18-minute.
Oh, that wasn't a full TED Talk. That was a mini talk.
It was a mini talk. It was 5 minutes. Yeah. So it was 5/18.
It was perfect.
It was 5/18.
It was perfect.
I didn't.
Do you really want all 18 minutes?
I didn't have a sixth minute. I didn't have a sixth minute for that. Yeah.
I didn't know that it wasn't an 18-minute one. It felt like it. Just going. No.
God, he's never gonna
I just didn't
shut
even
up.
notice. It's on the TED site. You can.
It's
see
on the
it
TED
if you
site.
search for Robert Reid. Copyright math.
Copyright math.
Very, very good.
The $8 billion iPad.
And I'm sure by now you found out what sorghum is.
Yes, I knew what sorghum was, but when I gave the talk, just for dramatic
It's a good
effect,
line.
I feigned an ignorance of what sorghum was. It's some kind of grain.
I went out and found out after that.
Yeah,
I said,
actually,
what is sorghum?
I looked it up before I gave the talk. I didn't know what sorghum was. It's just one of those things you see.
And now
Like
I see
you're
it
reading-
everywhere. It's one of those things.
Yeah,
Now you see it. I see it at Whole
everywhere.
Food all the time. Sorghum.
And
There's
it's
sorghum.
in Captain Crunch and stuff. It's like sorghum. Oh, great.
Is it sweet?
I don't know. Not sorghum.
I want some Sorghum.
Rob Reid, sorghum expert. I'd like
You know
that
what?
to be my little tagline under my name.
We're going to go to do an ad for Shutterstock right now. I think we should search for sorghum on Shutterstock. It's
Great idea.
SORGHUM, right?
I believe you're right.
Shutterstock is the place. I was, when we went to see the most recent hot film, Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm watching the credits. Shutterstock in the credits. Everybody uses stock video, photos, illustrations, vectors from Shutterstock. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. If you were going to write an article about sorghum, you'd be wanting to go to Shutterstock.com.
Life magazine could do an article about sorghum with all that imagery.
Gorgeous. Yeah. Everything you'd ever want to know about sorghum from seed to table. It's all there. Many of the contributors to Shutterstock are professional photographers. You could tell. I mean, this is no amateur sorghum shot.
No.
Now, one of the great things about the search, first of all, they have a huge selection. They have kind of almost, what is the number now? Every time we go there, I want to see 40 million royalty-free stock images. They added 261,000 last week. Many of them are of sorghum.
Yep, many are. And many of them are not selfies.
And this, of course, with 40 million images, the search, let's see selfies. Yeah, there's a lot of selfies.
Selfies.
Now, here's the beauty part. You might want a happy selfie. You might want a sad selfie. There are no sorghum selfies, though. That's the good news. Go to Shutter.
He stumps.
Oh, there's a happy selfie.
Happy selfie.
Those girls are taking happy selfies. What about sad selfie? You got a sad selfie? I love it that the search allows you to add adjectives. Oh, that dog. That is a sad selfie. That is so sad.
Can you imagine that you could have put in sad dog selfie and Shutterstock would have had an answer. I love that.
It would have had a sad dog selfie.
Sad dog selfie.
And there's times you're writing a blog post, you're writing an article, you need a sad dog selfie. Where else? Shutterstock.com. With so many images, there's sure to be something just right for you. You do not have to have a paid account to create an account. In fact, you don't even need a credit card to create an account at Shutterstock. I would do that. That'll give you access. Oh, look, drones. How about drone selfies?
How about sad drone selfies?
Let's not do dronies.
Dronies.
Dronies. Those are drone selfies. It's the new word. Those aren't drone selfies, though. That one is, yeah. All right. Yeah, he's taking a selfie with a drone. Amazing. The search tools are great. You can not only narrow it down by emotion, subject, color even. They have a color wheel. You could say, it has to be in my color palette. It has to be blue. You could say file type. You can even narrow it down by gender. How many people are in the images? They've got a great iPad app. Won a Webby Award. It's beautiful. The multilingual customer service, more than a dozen countries. Full-time customer support throughout the week. If you need stock video, stock photos, stock illustrations, you've got to use Shutterstock. And like I said, you can make the free account, create the light boxes, share it, store it for later use for inspiration. Just go to Shutterstock.com. You don't need a credit card. Just start an account. Begin using Shutterstock to imagine what your next project could be like. Save your favorite images to review later. Once you decide to purchase, they have individual image packs or monthly subscriptions. We got the monthly subscription at Twit. I love it. So there's more dog selfies. There's quite a few.
There's some good cat selfies, too.
Oh, cats don't do selfies, do they?
Look, go to Shutterstock right here. I got a cat doing a selfie right here.
If you decide to buy on Shutterstock, even if you want to get the subscription, use TWIT814, and you'll get 20% off any image file if you use TWIT814 as the offer code. And we do thank Shutterstock so much for giving us some joy in life and sponsoring the Twit Show. September 9th, we believe, the day for Apple's iPhone announcement.
Indeed.
What we don't know is how soon the iPhone will be available. Typically, it's 10 days, the week following Friday. How would you say that? It's on a Tuesday, the 9th. Then a week from that Friday, the phone will be available.
The first Friday after the first Thursday.
Thank you.
The first Friday after the second Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah. First
Let's
Friday
get that
after
right.
the second Thursday.
Please,
Let's get it right.
if you're going to
Yes.
confuse us, do it with correct confusion.
I'll bet in German there's one word that means that.
It's one word.
There's one very long word. Oh, yes, exactly.
That's it. Now, here's an interesting little tidbit from John Gruber, the master of snark, but also Apple's pretty much pet blogger. I mean, he gets all the scoops, and Apple really loves Gruber. He implies that Apple's going to announce their wrist wearable thing next month. He's talking about an article from The Verge on how you'll charge a Moto 360. Apparently, Motorola has announced that their smartwatch will use Qi charging, wireless charging, right on.
Great.
All the watches I've used, including the Pebble, you have a kind of proprietary dock you got to snap it into. The Android Wear watches have the same thing. But Motorola is going to do a round one, and they're going to build in Qi charging. Here's what Gruber says. It looks like Motorola's designers tried to draw as much attention as they could to the 360's stupid flat tire display shape. The only way this could get funnier would be if it doesn't even ship until after Apple announces their wrist wearable thing next month. Knowing John, he's slipping in a little bit of a tidbit there. That's September
it's even
9th.
worse than that. I'm pretty sure he wrote this art, and I don't know him, but it looks like he wrote this article only to sort of backhandedly slip into it that very important piece of information, which actually everyone is picking up on, obviously. But there's something a little bit, I don't know. It looks like he's pushing it too much. It's like, all right, if you have that piece of information, at least, we understand this is no big deal for you because you have, all of these leaks all the time and all of the information, but at least write a couple of sentences on that topic. I don't know. I thought
now
it was
it gets
a little
worse
bit too much.
because I agree with you. I think that's the thing you do. Like when you went to Yale University, you say, "Oh yeah, I went to a small college in New Haven."
Yeah, exactly.
It's reverse snobbery, right? And then people find out, they go, "Oh wow, he knew, but it wasn't a big deal for him." That's how big a deal he is. Then he makes it worse because he now tweets, "Oh, by the way, I have no idea whether Apple is planning a wrist thing for September or October. I was just making a joke."
It really didn't come off like a punchline now, did it?
Maybe it's just he's better at blogging than at tech humor. Maybe.
Well, he's definitely a good blogger. I mean, he knows how to drive traffic. How many hits do you think that piece got? Right.
Well, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I read his blog all the time. He's one of my favorite bloggers.
Oh, I do. I love him. He's a brilliant blogger.
Yeah.
And he's tweeted this also. Apple will reveal its wrist gadget next month, says Apple watcher John Gruber. Then accidentally they had a picture of Brady, Reagan's press secretary Brady, who passed away this week. Very confusing.
It is funny.
Very confusing.
I would be very surprised if they announced their watch. It's pretty much established now that they're gearing up to announce the phones, right? And Apple traditionally does not announce a new product and launch another major product at the same time. That's why I think he was actually trying to make a joke. It would surprise me that they would announce both at the same time. So
I'm wondering if they're ever going to announce it. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, Apple's never said they're making a watch.
That's true.
It's all of us who have said they're making a watch.
Well, they've hired a lot of people who know how to make watches. That would be a very strange string of hires if they weren't at least exploring that type of product.
They probably are exploring it. Everybody's exploring it, aren't they? But every time I use one of these watches, this is the Android Wear, which is the best of the breed at this point. It's nice. It's not something you'd run to the store to get.
But that's why everyone's waiting for Apple to do something, right? Because that's a lot of people say, "Oh, come on, stop it with Apple. You're always pointing to them and waiting for them to do something when we already have watches." It's exactly the issue we had with quote unquote smartphones before they came up with the iPhone, and with tablets before the iPad, and a bunch of things. So that's really the promise, that Apple is going to make a product that is going to fulfill a function we didn't really know we wanted, because you're absolutely right. That's the thing. We've seen a lot of those watches, and none of them are really compelling. Right. So the big question mark is, we've seen from Google, from a bunch of people, and none of them are compelling. So will Apple be able to make that into a useful new product category and make it into a massive consumer hit?
Isn't
which
it possible
isn't now.
all the people they hired really are just for making this in the iPhone? I mean, they hired a bunch of health people who could just be part of HealthKit, part of the iPhone's own health capabilities, the designers, all of that. Couldn't they just be a better iPhone?
You can get a lot more from the health standpoint, though. I think Basis was the first to put a green laser into the phone that actually gets heart rate.
To the watch, yeah.
Really, I'm sorry, no, the watch. It's really,
but
really
even
hard
that,
to get
you can't
heart
be
rate.
exercising when you're doing it.
It's imperfect. It's 1.0 or 0.9.
Yeah.
But
I bought a
nonetheless,
Basis watch. I wore it for a while.
It didn't rock my world either. I wore it for about 3 weeks. But I think that let's think of that as 0.9. My guess is if you're going to be really, really serious about quantified self, you do need to be on the body, and probably preferably on the wrist.
How about a nipple ring or something? Or maybe like something behind your ear? Wouldn't there be better places you could put this for pulse? I mean, really, the best place for a pulse monitor is on your chest.
For a very high fidelity one, without any question,
That's right. That's where the heart is. I'm curious. I wonder if we'll even see anything from Apple this year. I bet not. I'm going to do a reverse Gruber and say we're not going to see anything in 2014 at all. I also feel like Apple may not have the magic formula.
Yeah, there have been a lot of very serious efforts by serious folks to make a watch that is fabulous. And there's not even, but then again, I thought
Apple did it with the iPod.
Yeah.
Apple did it with the iPhone.
Exactly.
Certainly the
Apple did it with the
MP3
iPad. They've done it 3 times.
Yeah.
That's the really exciting thing, and that's why we're so focused on what they're going to do in that space. It's that now we know, they've done it 3 times, maybe even more if you count, other things. They've done it 3 times. We're sort of all wondering, are they going to be able to make it again? And even more importantly, they have done it in ways that we didn't really think we didn't imagine it was going to happen like that. So the big question is, are they going to come out of left field and do something that we didn't really imagine? And that's why we can't really get excited, right? That's what you're saying, Leo. But both of you, we're not really excited about whatever they have in store.
It requires a leap of faith in Apple.
Yeah.
Right?
And we've been waiting for them to do
of
something
course.
really agenda-setting in television for a very long time.
Same
and
thing.
It hasn't happened. Waited years
it,
in that case.
said Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
HP might have stolen their thunder. One of the things I thought Apple was going to do was make a stylish watch, like make it jewelry that's beautiful that you want to wear. Because in almost every case right now, I like my good watches better than I like. And Jeff said that. He likes his, he has a, what? Doesn't matter? You don't want the world to know that you're wearing a Cartier tank watch? He has a Cartier watch that he says is better than any smartwatch because it's a beautiful work of art. It's a piece of jewelry. And I would say I have a tank watch also and a number of other very nice watches, which I wear on special occasions. But the HP watch, look,
Very British of you.
I think that's a steak sauce. The HP watch, which will be on Gilt.com this fall, is designed by Michael Bastien. Is he French, Patrick? Michael Bastien.
I had never heard of him, but
me neither. Everybody's saying, "Oh, it's by designer Michael Bastien." Oh, the Michael Bastien. Yes. For all I know, he's some guy and works in
American fashion designer known for
he's
his
American.
namesake label.
Isn't that a oxymoron, an American fashion designer? Well, anyway, the watch looks nice.
He's the one that HP chose, so that tells you something.
He's selling it on Gilt only, which is odd.
It is odd. Yeah.
Isn't Gilt?
Yeah, one thing that HP definitely didn't do with this announcement is steal Apple's thunder.
Yeah, I guess
you
not.
were asking that.
I guess not.
Earlier, so.
Speaking of Apple thunder, well, let's take a break, and I want to talk about the persistent rumor that Apple's going to abandon Intel. That'd be a big blow for Intel, wouldn't it?
That would be big, yeah.
But I think you got to think Apple's suffering some pain right now. They've been waiting for Intel to come out with its successor to Haswell, the 14 nanometer Broadwell chip. And it's much delayed, and Apple's been kind of stuck. They can't release a new Mac,
Yep.
Or at least not update the new Mac significantly until Intel gets off the stick. And the delay has been a while now. So we'll talk about that. Is it ARM for the next Macintosh? But first, a word from Carbonite. It's online backup time. I know people who every time they watch Twit, this is their backup time, right? I'm gonna be listening to Twit, and I'll be backing up. Now, that's fine as long as you don't forget, and as long as your hard drive doesn't crash the day before Twit and you lose 6 days worth of data. The best backup would just be you wouldn't have to think about it, right? It would just happen, be automatic. And more than that, it wouldn't just be on Sundays. It would be continuous whenever you're online. And best of all, it would be off-site because, as we all know, having backups sitting next to the computer is a recipe for disaster. If there's a fire, a flood, a tornado, somebody breaks in and steals your stuff. I love Carbonite. Maybe not the only thing you do. You can have a local backup. In fact, Carbonite now makes a hardware appliance for business that does both local and cloud backup. Best of both worlds. And that's great because, as we know, in business, high availability is important. Getting back in business is important. Carbonite is great for business. It's great for home. It is a great way to save because your data, because you don't have to think about it, and it's very affordable. $59.99 a year to back up everything on a Mac or a PC. They have plans for external drives, network-attached storage, small business, and all of it. Automatic, continuous, off-site, the things you need. Now, it's free to try it, and I want you to do so by going to Carbonite.com, and all I ask is when they say, where'd you hear it? What's the offer code? Use TWIT. That way they'll know you heard about it on Twit, and you'll get 2 months free if you decide to buy. They've got plans for every user, for every situation, but all of it is the best automatic backup. You pay once a year. You pay for it and you forget it. That's what I love about it. Carbonite.com. Try it today. Please use the offer code TWIT. Actually, David Friend, the guy who founded Carbonite, reminds me a lot of you, Rob. He's a serial entrepreneur. He started ARP, the synthesizer company.
Really?
Yeah, out of MIT. So he was.
A lot of people got their start in synthesizers. Ray Kurzweil.
Ray Kurzweil, same thing.
Yeah.
Steve Gibson.
Right.
So he retired, kind of a successful entrepreneur, and was enjoying life. Then his daughter in college calls him and says, "Daddy, I lost my thesis. Can you help me?" And he said, "I don't know." Carbonite. And he invented, as a solution, he invented Carbonite, which is kind of cool. Very nice guy. You would like him. Yaley.
Private college in New Haven. Little college in
I'm
New
sorry, he
York.
went to a small liberal arts college in New Haven.
Yes.
Which my brother-in-law says the best college in Connecticut.
Your brother-in-law go to Harvard or something?
Yeah, he went to Harvard.
Yeah.
Jean-Louis Gasset, nice French name because he's a Frenchman. He was president of Apple Internationals like 30 years ago, and brought to Cupertino to help run Apple in the Gil Amelio days. He's actually made a pretty good name for himself as a blogger. The Monday Note, every Monday, comes out with analysis of the business scene. He wrote an article this Monday called Macintel, The End is Nigh. He's actually quoting a 16-year-old blogger, Matt Richman, who wrote a blog in 2011 saying, Apple and ARM sitting in a tree. Matt says, I don't know exactly when, but sooner or later, Macs will run on Apple-designed ARM chips. Now, as time goes by, this becomes more and more compelling. Apple has announced a desktop-grade chip for its latest iPhone, the A7, right? They made a big point of it being 64-bit. Intel's way behind on Broadwell. Apple would love to get a Broadwell processor in its Macs, but they have to wait. Even though Apple's one of their biggest customers and usually gets the chips before anybody else, they're still waiting. Even strong rumors have been going on for a long time that there's a skunkworks at Apple that's porting OS X to ARM. I'm sure that OS X on ARM is up and running somewhere at one infinite loop. Does this make sense? And is it something, I imagine it'd be bad news for Intel?
That'd be terrible news. I mean, I think that the reason to do it would probably be margins and control. I mean, they certainly hate for somebody else's slipping product to slip their own product. And that looks like it's going to happen with the new Macs in this holiday season. The reason not to do it is probably software compatibility and performance. I mean, Intel just is an extraordinarily powerful engine. And, when you think about way back when they first announced transitioning over to Intel, it had a huge positive impact on the Mac market share.
I was so negative about that. I was bitter and angry. And as it turned out, they managed it perfectly.
They did it beautifully, yeah.
Couldn't have been done better.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had a dual strategy for a period of time, and maybe the more expensive systems were running on Intel and offered greater software compatibility.
Imagine a MacBook Air, their lightest, smallest computer, running on ARM. 20 hours battery life, because one of the big things ARM brings you is
positive,
great battery life, low heat. Steve Jobs, he quotes Steve Jobs in the articles, and Steve's well known for saying, "I've always wanted to own and control the primary technology in everything we do."
In the stack,
if you want to make great software, you got to make the hardware, and vice versa.
That's completely true. But, you know, Steve Jobs is like statistics. You can make him say anything.
That's true.
Like Moses.
So, you know, you pick the right quote in the right context. You can. So I wouldn't put too much stock in that.
But I do think that it's fair to say that Apple has always moved in that direction to manufacture it all.
That's always been their competitive advantage.
And I'm certain that they are at least exploring the possibility again of running macOS on ARM chips, as they were when they had the Power PCs, and they were, they had the blue box and the yellow box. They were running macOS on Intel for a long time, or at least it was rumored, but it turned out it was probably true, for a long time before actually debuting that transition. I think the problem here is they've done that transition a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Something like that. They in order for that transition to become relevant, you need to have a much heavier weight on that delay from Haswell to Broadwell. It can't, a few months of delay is not going to provoke that. Remember, they stuck with Power PCs for a very long time. I mean, 2 or 3 years, when they were way, way, way behind the Intel chips. And they were doing ridiculous things like putting multiple CPUs on a motherboard in order to try and get enough to suck enough power out of the Power PCs that couldn't keep up with Intel. And that would also be an issue. Sure, you would have a lot more battery life, but the A7, the iPhone chip, is really powerful for a phone.
For a mobile
run a
chip.
Computer on it.
Yeah.
It's exactly, for a mobile chip. It's nothing like what an Intel PC desktop class chip can do, or even notebook class. So
is that true? I mean, is that really true? Is it the case that ARM isn't up to snuff?
Well, you're running, I mean, okay, I'm not an expert on this, but it seems to me pretty obvious, on a phone or a tablet, you're running one, maybe two things at the same time. And yes, if you have the right game, you'll feature graphics that are pretty darn impressive, but it's an actual desktop level or notebook level OS has a lot more happening in the background and in the foreground.
I know you work for Blizzard and you don't speak for Blizzard, but look at the NVIDIA Shield, their new tablet, which just came out, running on, what is it, the Tegra 1, the latest Tegra. That is a fast little puppy. And gaming is great on it. It's a gaming platform.
Sure.
Yes.
No, it is. I'm not sure that you can make that jump. I'm not saying it's impossible or it's never going to happen. I'm just not sure, 6 months delay in a Broadwell chip is going to be such a huge burden that you would think we have to overhaul our entire system and system and developer ecosystem just for that. It's an enormous undertaking, and point. I don't think they would just do it.
That's a good point. Although, I mean, talking about owning the stack, they've even got their own programming language. Objective-C kind of is de facto apples, and Swift is all apples.
Well, they could, if they wanted to own their own chips, couldn't they build Intel clones like AMD does?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, the irony is Apple started ARM. In partnership with Acorn, right? I mean, they used to own ARM. They sold their stake in it years ago. I think this is kind of sexy, and I like what you said, which is make the low ends ARM,
perhaps, yeah,
and then the power computers, the pro computers, could be Intel.
Yeah, because the Intel chips, at least for the foreseeable future, I agree with Patrick, are much beefier.
But look at a Chromebook, which is some of the Chromebooks are ARM, aren't they?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they're not all Celerons. They're ARM. I think people don't need the power that they used to. In fact, we had a great discussion a week ago with Jeff Jarvis on Twig, in which he said, my Mac's died, you need to tell me why I should buy another computer or just not. He says, my inclination is not to buy another computer, just go with Chromebooks and tablets and phones. And I think that increasingly, for 99% of people, they don't need a computer.
Yeah, when the iPad first came out, my
about
feeling was if this becomes a rich man's Kindle, it's doomed, which is how a lot of people were looking at it.
That's what we thought it was.
But if it becomes a poor man's laptop, it's colossal category. And it really certainly seems to have moved that way.
And if you had an ARM-based Air that had great battery life, was it less expensive, it could easily be fast enough for everything but the most high-end. You work with gamers, Patrick. I mean, gamers want more power, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, but that's a limited subset of the population.
It's tiny,
and
just like professional video
editors and
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not tiny, but it's certainly not the general populace. But I'm just not sure that an ARM chip at the moment can run Mac OS. And maybe it can, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's 2 years away. It just doesn't seem like we're quite there. We might be not so far from now, but
there is one big company that's running both Intel and ARM. It's called Microsoft, and Windows Pro runs on Intel, and Windows RT runs on ARM. Admittedly, it's kind of ugly when it comes to running apps because it's not the same app store for both. What runs on RT runs on RT and only RT. In fact, I think Microsoft's probably killing RT and going to replace it with Windows Phone on those smaller devices. I just think it's possible. By the way, we talked last week, and I think it was confirmed about the Google case where they caught a child pornographer by scanning his email, and it has been confirmed, as we surmised, that they did that using hashes provided by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, not by looking at email directly. And we at the time speculated that perhaps, and it seemed likely that other email providers like Yahoo and Microsoft might be doing the same. Guess what? Microsoft tip ends in arrest of alleged child porn hustler. Yes, the same thing. He was using Hotmail to distribute child pornography. And in this article by CNET, by Dara Kerr, she says, Google, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as Microsoft, all use something called PhotoDNA. It's the same technology. The hashes are provided by the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And then these companies scan through the images, all images, looking for matches. And if they find a match, they report it to the MEC. So, yes, Microsoft does the same thing. Everybody does. So don't worry.
Distributed law enforcement.
Some good discussion, speaking of Microsoft, about Microsoft Windows, the next generation. The code name is Threshold. Believe it or not, Windows 9 is due next spring.
It's amazing.
How did that happen? We've been fighting 8 for almost 4 years now. Threshold, apparently, this is all from our great hosts on Windows Weekly, Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley, who are really experts on this. NeoWin had the story, but Paul and Mary Jo have confirmed it with their sources. The next generation of Windows will return the menu, the start menu, say goodbye to the Charms bar, the much-hated Charms bar, and add something that Linux has had for years, virtual desktops. So, as they say in France, la plus ça change. How do they say that? La plus la même chose.
Plus ça change, plus ça reste pareil.
Okay, that's French also.
More it changes, more it stays the same.
The more things change.
That's French for Windows. Yeah.
Windows. So yeah, kind of. Watch this though. Watch the irony of this, because of course, as soon as they dropped the Charms bar, which most people really loathe in Windows 8, you'll have huge ruckus.
Charms bar nostalgia.
Oh my God, they killed the best thing in Windows.
Remember that big uprising about Clippy being shut down?
Yes.
It would be like that
No,
again.
there was
People
no
taking to the
uprising.
street.
Yeah.
Nobody
Right.
complained.
I really,
Weren't there riots in Cairo when they got rid of Clippy?
No, nobody said anything.
Must be one of the 15 people in the world who really loves Windows 8, although I never use the, modern UI part of it. But I really
How do
don't
you
think
avoid
anyone's
it?
gonna-
Wait a minute, though. That's my problem with it. If I could just make it look like Windows 7, then I wouldn't have a problem with it.
You never go to it. You just press the Windows key from time to time, type your search to get the program you
then
want,
you hit return
and then you hit
back in the
return.
desktop.
It's perfect. Yeah. There's really no. I mean,
But what if, okay, let's
not get
say
back
you're
into
sitting
the
and looking
debate.
at a Windows 8 machine, Windows 8.1, and you want to shut it down. Then what do you do?
I go to the bottom right corner,
The charms bar.
then to the settings. Yeah,
The charms
settings,
bar.
and
the thing slides out.
It's not more exactly, and it's not more dumb than to push the start button to shut down.
No.
Right.
No.
So, and you can, if you press the Windows key, you have a little on-off switch that appears on top of with Windows 8.1 now on top of your screen. And I mean, I think it's getting a lot of bad rap, but I'm sure when Windows 9 comes out, everyone's going to go, oh, finally. And, it's going to be Windows 8 with a couple of tweaks, and everyone's going to go, finally, Windows 8.
That happened with Vista and 7. Vista was hated, and 7 was just Vista. With some of the edges shined up a little bit. And everybody said,
What
the
had
best
happened,
version of
though?
Windows ever. I don't think you're in that situation. I think Windows 8.1 is pretty roundly hated.
It has half the market share of Windows XP.
Its market share actually went down last month.
Did it? Windows 8?
Yeah.
I just looked it up.
It went down by a little tiny bit.
As of July, it had half the market share of XP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half the market share. It says it all right there.
Really does, yeah.
So do you believe that rumor that Windows 9 is going to be free for owners of XP, Vista, and 7?
I saw that. I think it'd be a smart way to start getting some XP people to convert, but I don't know if many machines that are running XP could handle Windows 9.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, that would be a pretty major load.
But do
on them.
remember that just because Apple gives away its operating system, I mean, that's what the response would be. Well, Apple gives away OS 10. That Apple sells hardware. Microsoft barely. In fact, Microsoft, as some estimates, have lost $1.7 billion on its hardware. Microsoft sells Windows. If you give away your only product, I think you're out of luck.
But I think they want to get
seem like a good
product
plan.
anymore. It's not their only product anymore. They're going to start. I mean, they are focusing
Is it all the
on
cloud?
software as a service. Yeah, exactly.
So it would
It probably makes sense to have everyone.
Because when XP probably cannot service a lot of their cloud products,
Right.
It's just not going to integrate with it, and so it's astounding. 25% of
Isn't that amazing?
market share.
You can't
for
deny
XP.
that. However you feel about Windows 8, Patrick, you can't deny that it's a hideous flop, worse than Vista.
And they want to get those
Well,
people
what-
back
what
on the
I-
Windows train.
What I feel is that I love Windows 8, and I am the only one who's not going to get Windows 9 for free, if that's true. I mean, come on.
You liked it, so you get to pay for the next one. Microsoft has a new app called Snippet that lets you track celebrities. What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing. Is it called Snippet or Stalk It?
Snippet with a 3 instead of an E. Very elite of Microsoft. Why Microsoft? By the way, it's iPhone only.
iPhone and Windows XP only.
That's the strangest. Every celebrity has a profile page created by Microsoft, which includes a timeline of news and imagery from around the web, alongside options to like and comment on each page of content. It's never been easier to stalk your favorite celebrity.
That's fabulous.
Never been easier.
I think it makes sense. It's easy to make fun of, and certainly I have done that as well. But it does, it's the Yahoo strategy, right? Try to get Yahoo.
Oh, that's worked so well for Yahoo.
All right, fine.
That's really been a great move.
Well,
It's really the MySpace
they do have
strategy.
a lot of stuff.
No, this is, you know what this is? This is Bing. This is what Microsoft's been doing with Bing. They've been creating content silos for Bing. They've hired editorial staff. Bing News actually has a bigger newsroom than a lot of newspapers nowadays. So I agree with you. This is not a bad strategy. It does remind one a little bit of the Yahoo strategy to go content focused.
Exactly.
Which didn't work.
And to go broad content. I mean, celebrities appeal to everyone, and stalking celebrities appeals to
Who
everyone.
doesn't love stalking celebrities?
Who hasn't done it?
I wish I had an iPhone so I could download this. I need my Katy Perry fix. We're going to take a break, come back with more. Rob Reid's here. Patrick Beja, great to have you both. Thank you for joining us. Great studio audience. Thanks. See, August is tough because everybody's on vacation, which means we have a massive studio audience for every show.
And nothing is happening.
no hosts.
Yeah.
And there's no news. So you came, it's glad you're here. Paul and Mary Jo and Dvorak and everybody, they're going to watch somebody else's show. They're on vacation. Our show today brought to you by a great company that I'm a big fan of, Citrix. You know I talk about them all the time. And GoToMeeting, which we use all the time. Citrix GoToMeeting is the #1 way to meet when you're not all in the same place. And frankly, I go home so I don't have to be in the same place and have GoToMeeting meetings. Nowadays, the office is distributed. Everybody's everywhere. They're all over the world. They're all over the country. Meeting with your coworkers isn't a question of where. It's a question of how. Same thing with your clients. You want to pitch somebody with a PowerPoint? You're going to fly across the country? No, you're going to use GoToMeeting. It gives you eye contact because the HD faces built into GoToMeeting gives you great video so you can see them. Plus, you get screen sharing so you can share that presentation with them. 34 million meetings last year on GoToMeeting. And I did about half of them, I feel like sometimes. GoToMeeting lets you meet with anyone, anywhere, from any computer, tablet, or smartphone. You can present from an iPad. It's great on an iPad. You can go sitting out in the backyard, plug in your headphones, and that's it. You don't need a phone. You just need internet. Talk face-to-face, share screens, schedule meetings in advance, so it's as easy as a click of the mouse. GoToMeeting. I love it. We use it every day. I want you to try it right now for 30 days. Free. Visit GoToMeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button. The promo code is TWIT. GoToMeeting.com. Promo code TWIT. Did you download Snippet? You have a snippet. I have a snippet?
Ooh.
How to Follow Me. Oh, my God. There's a biography. That's straight out of Wikipedia. Net worth. Wow, I'm rich. TV shows, related celebrities. Sarah Lane's on here. Amber MacArthur's on here. Patrick Norton's on here. Thank you, Microsoft. I won't mock your celebrity stalking application ever again.
Ooh, maybe that's their plan.
Does it give you your current location? That would be creepy.
Well,
Where's Leo right now?
You know what? It would if I checked in with Foursquare.
It will until after between 8 in the morning and
right. But I've turned off notifications.
Turn off until 8 tomorrow morning. Yeah.
But we don't know where Leo sleeps yet. I'm not going to do the hotel finding brides $500 for bad reviews.
It's hysterical. That was one of the funniest articles of the week.
And I don't know how, the hotel now says, no, it was just a joke. They took that down. And then, of course, nothing dies on the web. If you go to archive.org, you can, see it on the Wayback Machine. The idea was this is a beautiful, I know it. It's in Hudson, New York, the Union Street Guest House. Very cute, but it's a little quaint, a little funky. And their fear is that people would come check in as part of a bridal party and say, well, there was no gym and write bad reviews. So they say on their website, please understand, this is an old house. It's a classic place. And if you've booked in for a wedding or a big group, you got to give us a deposit. And we will deduct $500 from that deposit for every negative review placed on any internet site by anyone in your party. Boom. Yeah. Put down the hammer. Now, everybody made fun and laughed and said, that's terrible. But you know what? I kind of understand. There's a war going on right now. I've seen articles about chefs and Yelp. I've seen articles, what this is don't troll us or we're going to fine you.
Well, this is different from trolling. This would be a paying guest saying I wasn't happy there, and then a bride getting whacked for $500. And by the way,
they're not going to do it. No one was fined.
Yeah. But
they said it was a joke.
They've definitely gotten the Amy's Baking Company treatment on Yelp because I'm looking at it right now, and there's scads of one-star reviews posted in the last 3 days since this thing.
Just because of that, we never
Yeah.
stayed there. But boy, these guys are terrible.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like a lot of these people are claiming. Because I think they're trying to get around Yelp taking their review down. They must have had a full house last night. Because we were here yesterday for a wedding party. Terrible service. Even worse. Oh, come on. You were not. It's like dozens of people claimed to be there last night.
Here's one that says,
idea.
I've never been a guest, so I can't speak to the decor or the customer service, but I spent a lot of time in that town, and I have walked past that hotel at least a dozen times, and I never even noticed it. To me, that's damning. It's not architecturally interesting.
I have seen bombed out.
That's a troll.
Here's one. I have seen bombed out shelters in Iraq that were more appropriate for guests than this place. Obviously, by a member of the U.S. military.
Yeah.
Who's also been to the Upper Hudson.
Sure. Let's put it this way. If Saddam Hussein had a choice between his spider hole and USGH, he would have stayed in the spider hole. I think that was just some little old lady who thought it was a good idea and changed her mind when she found out that it wasn't.
This is damning. We walked into this hotel once and ended up leaving. It felt somewhat unwelcoming.
It was spooky.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I do think.
So can they now submit requests for the right to be forgotten?
Yeah. There is a
exactly.
larger
Those
issue here,
reviews.
which is, can you imagine? You're a chef, you have a restaurant, you have a hotel. You do your best, you work hard, you think you have a pretty good product, and there are just cranky people in the world.
Sure, yeah.
And those cranky people are writing mean, nasty reviews, and it can kill your business. I understand a little bit from the other side, the feeling that we've lost control of our image.
Well, particularly if it's somebody who has not actually used the product, and that's where I think it gets preposterous. And in this case, they were basically waving the red cape at the internet, so they couldn't be
huge
astounded.
mistake.
Very very big mistake.
Never wave the red cape.
But yeah, it doesn't give me any value as a potential buyer of a product when I see something that says, well, I never ate here, or I never stayed here, or I never read this book. But it shouldn't. There should be a policy on a site like Yelp or Amazon or whatever else that if somebody is essentially clearly not used the product, you just take that review down. That's just silly.
You don't go after. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what they did was right. It was kooky. It was dumb, and obviously it's backfired incredibly.
Yeah.
However, I also can understand the other side of it, where you feel like, I just want. If people really had a problem, that's fine. But I want people to be honest, and look. Anybody who's worked with the public, anybody who's ran a cashier at McDonald's or anything, knows that there are a small percentage of people you just can't make happy.
And then people use it, kind
as
of
a weapon.
Well, they use it.
Yelp is used against.
Yes, competitors will file negative reviews. I mean, it's a Pandora's box.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is.
No.
I really don't. Obviously, it's not fining brides. That seems like a bad idea.
Grooms, maybe.
No, I think they should have. They should have simply, fine, deduct $500 per bad review, but then, give $500 per good review. Then everyone would have been happy. I think that works.
I think that's against the Yelp terms of service.
It might be, yeah.
Damn it!
I don't think you can pay for good reviews. So
That's too
apparently,
bad.
do you read fiction? Do you read fiction, Patrick?
Not as much as I would want to.
All right. Obviously, you
Is
write
that a-
fiction. You must
Yeah,
read
and this was
fiction.
an electrifying article. I think one of the most important articles to be released all week. And I hope all those people who are lonely right now can ask
Readers-
themselves, why am I lonely? And the answer is you don't read enough.
You don't read
books.
enough.
Yeah.
Science tells us people who read fiction are the best people to fall in love with. They're the best people, period. This is
Study after study
is
after study. I was amazed at how long that article
a
went on.
psychologist at York University in Canada, a psychologist at the University of Toronto, both in 2006 and 2009, found that those who read fiction are capable of the most empathy and theory of mind. That is the ability to hold opinions, beliefs, and interests apart from their own. You can't read fiction without it, right? You have to live in somebody else's world. If even aliens who have a copyright problem.
Hey, they love music.
Another study
relate
in
to that. 2010
said that the more stories children have read to them, the keener their theory of mind. So the study by Ann Cunningham, University of California, Berkeley, what reading does for the mind. On
It
and
just
on.
goes on and on and on. I'm just
New School
fascinated
for
by this.
Social Research, psychologist David Corner, Kid. What a great writer does is turn you into the writer. In literary fiction, the incompleteness of the characters turns your mind to try and understand the minds of others, and that's good.
That's good. These are the people you should fall in love with. And I think one of the other studies, I forget which one, said that merely by buying a lot of books, you can also benefit from these effects.
And especially if that book were
Science fiction,
a couple of bucks.
Yeah, it's $2.99. It's really how many empathy points per dollar we're talking about now.
$2.99 empathy points.
Exactly. Yeah.
available
How do
to
you
you.
get those 2 points? Because for me, the Kindle price is $14.28, which
Oh,
I
you're
guess
in
probably
is
US.
France.
Probably
empty
US. Probably
points.
US.
You're in
only. Yeah.
France.
I'm on Amazon.com US. And it's still
sniffing your
Sniffing your
IP sniffing.
IP.
Yeah.
damn IPs. Well, what happens if I
Are you a
spoof?
member of the 900 strong authors group who wants to put Amazon out of business?
I am not. And this was one of the stories that being I mean, I literally am reconnecting today. I haven't caught all of the froth about that. Well,
You started with the Hachette thing,
which is really is kind of odious. I mean, that is Amazon is really using its market share as a bludgeon against Hachette. So I'm empathetic to Hachette.
But Amazon says, and I mean, as a buyer of books, I like this idea.
Yep.
Amazon says, well, we're just trying to fight for you. Ebooks are overpriced.
Yep.
They shouldn't be so expensive. There's no printing press, no truck delivery, no storefront.
And most of them are a lot less expensive than the physical books. Well, not the paperbacks. The hardcover, they're a lot cheaper than that. And I generally buy books personally that are new and fresh. And so I always feel like I'm getting a fabulous deal because I'm buying it on the Kindle rather than a hardcover.
Audiobooks are almost, in many cases, as expensive as the hardcover.
Or more so.
Or more.
Yeah.
And that bugs me.
Yeah, that's fascinating how expensive they can be.
Yeah.
I've always done...
Well, audiobooks you have to record, right?
Yeah,
That's
they have to
also
pay
something.
somebody to record them.
There is an expense there. I mean, we recorded Year Zero. John Hodgman read it. And they had to hire John Hodgman to sit in the studio for 5 days. That's expensive.
It's a few $100s, right?
No, well, John,
Could really set you back. No, I don't know what John's day rate is.
I think his
but
day
it's more
rate's
than
a bit steeper than that. Yeah.
But they knew it would sell well, and they knew John's name on it would help it sell
Precisely.
well.
Yeah. But they're expensive to make.
I didn't realize Hodgman. I read
Hodgman
the book.
read it, yeah.
One of the few books I actually read the physical.
Oh, really?
Because you gave me
That's
a copy.
right, I did. I did
But
indeed.
yeah,
Hodgman
I didn't
reads
know
the
Hodgman
audio.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me
Fabulous
want. I'm going to go
comedian,
get it. That's awesome.
And I sat in the studio and listened to him record, and that was a blast.
How fun is that?
That was fun, fantastic.
5 days it took him.
I think it was 5 days. Yeah, it was Monday through
A
Friday.
lot of retakes.
Yeah, because like when in reading it, if he didn't feel that he
stumbled.
nailed a sentence,
Right.
he'd read it again and retake it a lot himself. There was somebody who was, for all intents and purposes, played a role like a director.
The producer, yeah,
the
yeah.
producer was there,
Yeah.
and a very, very good producer. And it was an operation. We had a room in New York with all the fancy equipment and the sound
yeah.
and everything. None of that was cheap.
No, I guess you're right. So it should be expensive. Yeah. And he did. By the way, Jeff listened to the Year Zero Hodgman version and says it's great.
Oh, good.
He says, OMG.
He
It's
read it
great.
magnificently.
Yeah.
John's
a good reader.
He's a fabulous reader.
He's an actor, and that's what you want.
And he's a very good vocal talent. Like he does wonderful podcasts. And he's very good on camera, but he's done a lot of stuff with NPR. He's very good at creating a presence and a vibe and conveying humor strictly with his voice, which is not something that everybody who's an actor can do. It's a different set of skills.
It's an amazing set of skills.
Yeah, and I think it's partly because he somewhat grew up in the NPR world that he's so good at that.
Right. Well, he was a literary
agent,
so he knows. So, see, the problem is Amazon does seem to wield his power. So the latest thing is, as of yesterday, you could not pre-order any Disney DVDs.
Oh, I didn't know
They just
that.
stopped it, and it's because they're in negotiations with Disney.
Wow. It feels a little ham-fisted.
Now, one reason that the courts have not taken an interest in this, I'm sure the publishers would like it, but the courts say, well, no, Amazon's got plenty of competition. What about that bookstore across the street?
Well, the courts also struck a mighty, mighty blow in favor of Amazon's market dominance by attacking Apple and all the major publishers. Right. And what that had the net effect, and it certainly wasn't the intention, but it had the net effect of significantly strengthening Kindle's market share against Nook, which was already reeling.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think the DOJ would have there's probably a certain amount of embarrassment at the DOJ right now, knowing that they had done this thing, which had the net effect of propping up Amazon's market share significantly, to turn around and fine for Hachette. It would look like a major mea culpa, and people in Washington don't like to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that Amazon has on their side.
As an author, you love Amazon because they sell you a lot of books.
I love Amazon. They sell a lot of books. Yeah, it's a fabulous venue. I'm reaching people that I wouldn't otherwise reach.
But there are a lot of authors very worried about Amazon's power. That's the Authors United group in support of Hachette. Amazon has formed in response a Readers United group.
A Readers United asking people to email the CEO of Hachette, right?
Yeah.
Well, like giving his personal phone number out, maybe. Send him a postcard.
This was actually kind of nasty.
33 Sunnyside Lane. Send him a letter. Yeah.
I'm going to see if I can find these, because they have some suggested text. Let me see if I can find it. That is pretty aggressive. This doesn't happen in France, right?
Well, we have a whole other set of issues with Amazon, but this one specifically, no. It certainly is being discussed, though.
Yeah. They want, and I don't know which side I'd come down on this, frankly.
Yeah, and I should have dug more into this. I did not.
Well,
know
you're an
about
author.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was authoring.
John Grisham, Stephen King are part of the 900. They took out an ad in the New York Times pressing Amazon to resolve the dispute with Hachette. Meanwhile, Amazon says to its readers, "Dear readers, with it being so inexpensive and with so many more people able to afford and buy and read books, you would think the literary establishment of the day," that's you, "would have celebrated the invention of the paperback." Oh, they're talking about the old days. Actually, this is a misquote. They misquoted George Orwell in this, which is funny on two levels. One, because they got it wrong. They said Orwell... they quoted Orwell saying, if publishers had any sense, they'd combine against paperbacks and suppress them. But really, the full quote makes it clear he thinks this is a great thing. The Penguin paperbacks are only 6 pence, and he thinks he's going to sell a lot of copies in 1984. And he says, in jest, if publishers had any sense, they'd stop this.
And he said it in jest.
He said in jest because he's in favor, in fact, of paperbacks.
Yep.
That and the fact that Amazon yanked 1984 from its Kindles without any warning to anybody a few years back make this kind of a dubious
I forgot about it.
attribution.
What was the purpose of that again?
There was an...
it was a boo-boo, right?
No.
No.
There was an unlicensed copy of 84, which people had sold. The problem was by deleting it from the Kindle, they deleted all the
of
notes.
them. Yeah.
And students were upset that their notes had been deleted as well as the 1984 text.
Almost Orwellian, wasn't it?
It was a little...
Orwellian.
Yeah, the thought that you could actually delete a book from somebody's reader is...
And I've had Kindle lose some of my notes and highlights at different times, and it does make my blood boil. It feels like, because that feels like something that it is something you invested a lot of time in.
So here's what Amazon wants you to write. Dear Hachette, we have noted your illegal collusion. Please stop working so hard to overcharge for ebooks.
Quit colluding with yourself.
Stop using your authors as leverage. And if you're an author, remember, not all authors are united on this issue.
Not all authors are united.
So in France, we have a slightly different issue. We have the issue of the fact that book prices are fixed. You cannot discount them more than 5%, and that's in order to protect the small mom and pop shops, so that the big chains and particularly supermarkets, they can't price down.
So, are there a
idea
lot of
is
small
to
bookshops in France?
Well, the thing is, they're dying anyway now because no one, even if you don't go to Amazon, you're going to go to the big supermarkets and the Costco's of France. Right. And the idea was initially those stores would carry 100, 200 different references, and you wouldn't get the depth of culture that you would get in the smaller specialized stores, because the big guys would only want to get what really sells. And the issue is now against Amazon, you can have obviously a lot more diversity on Amazon than you can in any tiny store. So that law is kind of very difficult to put in place for this specific context. And they also had an issue with the free shipping. They said Amazon cannot do the 5%, and then they can do the free shipping. And of course, Amazon turned around and did shipping for 1 cent. Right.
It's not free.
Yeah, exactly. But
this whole show has been difficult problems with no obvious solution.
And there is, I think anybody who any nerdy person who spent up a lot of time growing up in bookstores is probably most of us were.
I love bookstores.
We have that affinity, but at the same time, you think of and that warms your heart. The 5% thing, and there's a lot more mom and pop shops. Yeah. But another level, that that kind of stifles the diffusion of culture and ideas.
Right.
Because, most people are at a point where they have to make choices between this product versus that product. And if a book is $12 when the market forces would have priced it at $8, a certain percentage of people are not going to access that book. They're not going to access those ideas, and that's a bad thing. It's tough, yeah.
There's also something to be said about ease of access. And again, as we've seen many times with the internet, the old monopoly, in effect, crumbling down. Let me give you an example. I went to the bookstore a few years ago when Game of Thrones started getting really big. And I figured, I'm going to buy it, a paper version, a Dead Tree edition, and read it. And I looked at the prices in French for the French versions. And so what they do is that they divide each book, which is admittedly pretty big, into 2 or 3 small books. And each one of those is sold for between 10 and 15 euros, sometimes even more. Which is, about $150. No, I'm kidding. It's like $20 or so, $15 to $20. And so you have in the whole series now, I think 15 books, maybe even more, which are sold for 10 to 15 euros each. So that's you also, I mean,
it's a workaround.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I understand that the translation is going to cost you a little bit of money, but that feels like a publisher abusing their position.
How George feels about that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure
don't have any say.
We're not back to Orwell, are we?
No, George R. Martin.
So, it's definitely a very tough topic. And I empathize and I understand what Amazon is saying, obviously for their own benefit. But there is something to be said about the fact that these books really have no reason for being that expensive. And the kicker is they could be paying more, the publishers could be paying more money to the author and keep more money to themselves, or not more, but there could be, in the end, there could be more money for everyone if they were relaxing a little bit.
Hachette.
Well, depending on the price elasticity.
I don't know.
The publishers.
That's the thing.
Somebody in the chat room mentioned a law book. I think it flew by, but it said a law book, electronic version of a law book for $5,000.
Wow.
Now that's a place where it's clearly abusive because the students in class X
have to buy
it. 5,000 lunacy. Wow. And that's the kind of thing that just, again, waves the red cape at the internet and causes piracy to happen. Right. At some point, you overreach and, you have Napster.
Hey, I want to wrap it up. We've had a great show, but before we do, let's take a look at some of the things that happened. It was a fun week on Twit. This is what you might have missed if you missed the show.
Previously on Twit.
It's going to be fun. Blah, blah, blah.
Is that a drug reference? Tech news tonight.
Kind of a big week in security. We've got the Black Hat Conference happening in Las Vegas.
One of the things that made the news was the so-called bad USB.
The Social Hour.
Local search will evolve to the point where it understands where you go and what you like to do, and it will recommend things to you. And I think the only reason you don't see other companies doing that is because it's really hard.
Read it up.
Today I learned Pluto never made a full orbit around the sun from the time it was discovered to when it was declassified as a planet.
This week in Enterprise Tech.
The firm Recorded Future is releasing a report that comes to the conclusion that the Snowden documents forced Al-Qaeda to dramatically change the way that it communicates online.
Triangulation.
Tech TV was such a fun place. It was so alive. We were all like, that feeling. You just walk in and everyone was just really enjoying their job. And it was clear how passionate people were about the programming.
Twit, the happiest place on earth.
Last week you teased that I would be very excited.
You're in Mad Magazine, Chad.
So amazing.
You are too.
So amazing.
Great.
Oh, man, that's the highlight of my life.
You were in Mad Magazine?
Bartolo. Yeah, Lisa and I and Chad all made an appearance in the Snark Tank.
I cannot tell you how much my parents have been communicating with me this past
Are they excited?
week all about the Mad Magazine. Yeah, I've gotten from all my family many emails, lots of phone calls.
It's to me. I mean, it's the highlight of
it's
my.
It's like my whole career was based around that Mad Magazine.
Yeah, me too.
And it's great you had Kevin on Triangulation.
Yeah, that was fun.
He's a fan. I mean, I love
He's done such a
love
great job.
Triangulation. It's such a cool format.
You've been on it.
I've been on it. And having been on it, I started watching it because you can really open up and have an in-depth conversation that really just couldn't be supported in any other medium, certainly not on the air.
It's a little Charlie Rose, but we really focus on tech people.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I love doing
the fact that you're unbounded in terms of time.
Right.
I mean, you really can have fantastic.
As is this show.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
As the audience well knows, many of them are jiggling their knees, going, it's going to be over soon. Thank you. Who do we have? I don't even know who's on Triangulation tomorrow. I should have paid attention to that.
Barack Obama.
Thank you very much. Very exciting.
Again? Good Lord.
It's. I don't know, but I guarantee you it'll be somebody interesting and somebody fun. Finally, we'll end up with a public service announcement. A couple of very good security firms, FireEye and Foxit, have the entire CryptoLocker database keys. So you may remember that CryptoLocker was a virus that was really ravaging computers all over the world. You got an email that said, somehow got you to run something. It would encrypt the hard drive, pop up a message saying your hard drive is encrypted in 72 hours. If you don't give us $300 or some amount of money, we're going to erase the encryption key, and you will never again be able to get your data. It was a devastating hack, but the good news is because the infrastructure of CryptoLocker was taken down in June by Operation Tovar, they actually have the master decryption keys for a lot of services that have been hacked. A lot of hard drives have been hacked. If you go to decryptcryptolocker.com, FireEye and Foxit are providing free keys to unlock your system. So if you're bit by CryptoLocker, declined to pay, or maybe you paid and didn't get the key, it's possible you may be able to unencrypt. Because right on top of this, a hack on Synology NAS servers, same problem. It's a CryptoLocker for Synology that locks them up. But I think CryptoLocker, we can safely say, is dead, thank goodness. They made a lot of money in a very short period of time, though.
I want to remind you, because I know you're going to be super excited about who is actually on Triangulation, Andy Weir of The Martian. So
I forgot.
Yes.
Oh, my God. That's great. Yeah, if you read The Martian, and I think everybody in our offices did because we all were so excited about this book. Started with Brian Brushwood recommending it.
Mm-hmm.
The story, it's kind of have you read it?
I have not.
Oh, my God. It's the best sci-fi in a long time, since year zero.
Thank you.
About a guy. It's about a guy who gets stranded on Mars. An astronaut. The rest of his team thinks he's dead. They leave.
Oh, I've heard about this.
He's not dead, but he knows that he can't be rescued for some years because he's on Mars.
And he's played by Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah, and there's this volleyball that no, it's not. But it is kind of Robinson Crusoe on Mars. It kind of is that idea, and but it's a science problem because I think this would be a great graduate course in something in physics because he has this limited set of tools. He knows how long he has to survive. He has to have enough food, enough water. He manages. Well, I'm not going to tell you what happens. Great book. If you haven't read it, read it right now. Read it tonight because its author Andy Weir joins us tomorrow.
Fantastic.
On Triangulation. Our Brickhouse anniversary T-shirt is still available for a few more days. We celebrated our 3rd year in our new studios, and we created a special, unique, one-time only T-shirt commemorating the date. And you can get it still at teespring.com/twit, but only for 2 more weeks. So hustle on over there. Teespring, T-E-E, spring.com/twit, and proceeds, of course, benefit the Twit Brickhouse. We're trying to pay the light bill. Hey, thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks to our great studio audience. If you want to be in studio, we do Twit every Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 2200 UTC. Email tickets at twit.tv. We'll put a chair out for you. A mighty comfortable chair, I think you'll agree. Well, we don't want you to get too comfortable. We don't want anybody to fall asleep here. And you can, if you can't be here in studio or watching on the internet, you can always get on-demand audio and video after the fact at twit.tv or Stitcher or the various apps. There are lots of ways to get it on iTunes. Thank you, Patrick Beja. Not Patrick on Twitter. How late is it now?
It's 2:15 in the morning.
Do you usually stay up this late?
Well, I'm going to say yes, just
so I don't feel bad?
Yeah,
Do you have to work in the morning?
I do, and
God, I'm
we have
so
a big
sorry
because we're. Oh, it's fine. I'm happy to do it.
Well, thank you very much for being here. It's always great to talk to you. Patrick
No
Beja
problem.
on .com on the web, and not Patrick on Twitter.
Or, FrenchSpin.com if you want to listen to my French shows, which include a tech show, by the way, in
He
French.
speaks impeccable French, too, I might add.
Yeah, I have a little bit of an American accent.
Do you? I bet you do.
Not too bad.
Rob Reid, always a pleasure to have you. Can't wait for the new novel, but the Year Zero is now $2.99 ebook.
This week only.
This week only at Amazon. Thank you to Random House for making that possible.
And I was very specific with them. I said I was going to be on your show, and it would be great to do a discount this week while we're here.
They said, well, only 4 or 5 people listen. We probably don't have to worry about that. So everybody buy it. Prove them wrong.
Yes.
Rob, anything else you want to plug? Or
that's pretty much it.
All right.
I mean, well, except for the fact that if you do read a lot of books, you're one of the best people in the world to marry.
Yeah,
now, I have
absolutely.
certain bachelor friends who would run screaming from that, but
no, you can read the books, just don't talk about them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Just read them. That's all we ask. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next time. Another Twit
This
is in the canyon. Bye-bye.